Hello and welcome back to the Blizzard Arena here in Burbank, California. I'm Cloakin, and we just got done seeing a 2-0 victory for SPT over Soul Torturers. They're not out of the woods yet, one more match to go for them, but up next we have third seed from Europe. Team Expert takes on the reigning Blizzcon champions from last year, Ballastix. Let's head over to JC Gillyweed Gluck and the crew at the desk to get their thoughts.
That is right, Kevin. I am back at the helm of the analyst desk for opening week of the HGC finals, and I am joined here with Skimmy, Grubby, and Kaldor. Now, we just had our first match of Group D, SPT versus Soul Torturers. And Kaldor, you got to cast that one. How'd you enjoy it?
I really liked it a lot, and I think Soul Torturers would have deserved the third game there. They played really well on both maps, I feel, but in the end, SPT was a bit too strong. But I think a third map would have been pretty cool between the two of them. They were very evenly matched.
Yeah, and Grubby, it's great to see the Chinese team, the only remaining Chinese team, SPT, doing so well in this group.
Yeah, they finally get their revenge against Soul Torturers as well. I'm still left to be convinced that they can also take out potentially Expert or Ballastix, but in that match against Soul Torturers, SPT looked as good as their really good HGC China season would have suggested.
Well, let's take a look at the Group D bracket. This is the final group for the group stage. Once we get the two teams going to Blizzcon from here, all we have left is the top 8 teams. We just did see SPT versus Soul Torturers winning 2-0. Now we're going to take a look at Ballastix versus Team Expert. This is an exciting match to get excited for, Skimmy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those groups where you're thinking, well, we now get to sort of see what happened in Korea with that bootcamp between both Korea and Europe. And we can sort of see the results. I mean, these teams have been scrimming each other. They've been adapting their drafts, their metas to try and revolve around what works for them, what works for the other side. So to actually get this matchup, we've seen what North America and Korea looks like. Now we get to see what EU and Korea looks like.
Guys down there, what are you most excited about for this series?
Personally, for me, it's to see how Expert shows up, because they are not as confident as you would expect. So first of all, in Korea from the bootcamp, they took a lot from that, and they came here with a lot of confidence. But since then, their scrims have been interesting to say the least against European teams. They still don't trade as well as they were hoping for. They do surprisingly well against MVP Black, though, to an extent where MVP Black says, we hate playing against these guys because we just can't figure it out. It doesn't make sense to us, and we lose most of our games. But at the same time, you would think that gives Expert a massive confidence boost, but against other teams where they thought they should trade better, they're doing not quite as well as expected. So they're hanging in there and saying, like, well, let's see how that group works out. So for me personally, that's what I'm really looking for. Which Expert shows up here?
In Grubby, we've got Ballastix, the previous global champion, of course, with BlizzCon, but they've had a lot of changes since we saw them last year.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite teams. They have shaped the meta as we know it in a large part. And they weren't always sure what direction they were going to be having. They had so many world championships. And now here they are, second seed from Korea, but they might just prove to be the most dangerous team. It really depends, though. Their confidence level here going into this tournament is uncertain. They really need this match to ground themselves into the tournament. They feel like they're in a really good shape, but they haven't played against some of these Western teams recently enough.
Yeah, and Ballastix, even though they did win last year, they sort of feel like they're a different team attending BlizzCon for the first time, Skimmy.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really feeling that pressure behind the banner. Once again, you know, being picked up by Ballastix, changing from L5, and you know, that's a bit of a, I suppose, a confidence boost, right? Not having that winner's burden of saying, look, we won last year, we need to sort of represent again. You can almost imagine it's a bit like a lucky charm, right? Being picked up by that same sponsor again. Look how dominating they were leading up into that one. But, I mean, back and forth across the board, EU and Korea, all these teams are basically rating, you know, Fnatic, Dignitas, all these different sort of scales. It's interesting to see the result as the series will show us.
But you've got to imagine, Kaldor, that there is still some pressure for this team. And namely, I'm talking now about yesterday, because as we've seen now, being from Korea is not a guaranteed check mark to get you through the group stage.
Yeah, I personally have been pretty critical of Tempest in particular for quite some time, since from all the games that we've seen, they just don't really live up to the other two. But Ballastix and MVP Black, they are two completely different beasts in my opinion. I personally would be very, very shocked to not see Ballastix make it out of the group, and I personally have them as the #1 seed for the group. So I think the execution that we expect from Korean teams to be on a top-notch level is very much so reflected in Ballastix as it is in Tempest, who paid for it yesterday in Group C.
Well, turning our attention to the European team and the only Western team in this entire group, we're talking now about Expert. Expert for a long time has been trying to get to the point that they are now. They finally were able to shrug off being not in the top 3 when they got to go to the Western Clash, and then now here and their first fully international event. Grubby, who stands out to you as sort of the playmaker, the one who will be leading the charge against such a powerhouse as Ballastix?
I mean, I think the 2 players that are taking the most limelight here is Nick, the ranged assassin there, phenomenal Chromie player, gets a lot of respect from the Korean teams as well. And then Bad Benny. The way that he plays tank is significantly different from almost any tank in the world. A lot of respect as well from our resident world champion, Fnatic. Breeze himself from Fnatic says that he looked at Bad Benny to learn many crucial lessons about how Warrior can be innovated, how the Warrior role can be innovated. So that's really cool.
They are a team that is really flexible in a lot of the different play styles that they can have. Kaldor, how important do you think that's going to be for this group and for this tournament?
I think it's really going to be extremely important for them, especially the drafting, since this is what all the teams that don't deal with them on a weekly basis have stated, that they have problems drafting against them, because ADRD is absolutely not afraid to just completely flip the switch every now and then. And that doesn't only reflect to, hey, I'm all of a sudden going to pick like a Gazlo combo. It didn't go as crazy lately. But sometimes, for example, he will throw out a first pick or a first ban that nobody really expects and really keeps the opponent's team guessing. It goes to an extent where even some of his own teammates say, well, during the draft, we sometimes don't even understand what's going on. And it was incredibly fun to sometimes see Angelo during scrims, for example. He talks to other people during the entire time. And then once that the game starts, like, okay, what do we have? What do they have? And that's the first time when he actually sees, like, oh, yeah, I think I like our comp quite a lot here, because he just hands the reign over to ADRD at that point.
Skimmy, do you have a point you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, adaptation really is a big factor at these tournaments, especially at the highest level, being able to sort of adapt to what other regions are doing, especially when you go to a boot camp. They discuss the factor of saying, look, we're going to go over there, we're going to sort of learn what they can do. Why take that risk at the tournament and go, oh, actually, they're a lot stronger than we thought they were in the first place, right? We learn that sort of objective at the get-go. We come into this tournament knowing what we're getting ourselves into. And, you know, they discussed at the last boot camp for the Kiev, for the Western Clash. They worked on team fighting. This time they've gone for the macro. So they're trying to form that more sort of well-rounded picture so that if they do need to go up against these different styles of teams, they know exactly how to counter and how to draft.
Let's get into the Battleground pool, and then Kaldor, you can add on to that. But I want to see where we're going for Game 1 and what was banned. Team Expert has banned Sky Temple, a great choice versus Ballistic Expert. Pretty flexible on the Battlegrounds they ban. And then we have a Towers of Doom ban. That is not as consistent with what we see from Ballastix in the past, especially in their own region. We're going to Tomb of the Spider Queen, chosen by Expert.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add real quickly to what Skimmy was talking about the meta, because when we talk about Dignitas and Fnatic, for example, as they headed towards Korea, they said they needed to learn quite a few things completely differently, whereas Expert stated from the get-go, our own meta was really doing extremely well in Korea. We adapted a few things from the Koreans when we saw a certain combo, a certain pick, a synergy that we didn't really include in our own drafts to the same extent that we now have in our arsenal. But overall, they said, we played pretty much what we're comfortable with, and we plan on bringing that not only to the opening league, but also to Blizzcon.
And the main thing Experts said that they felt they benefited from that bootcamp is more team fighting skill and more aggression. They liked where they were at. They were actually even skeptical about how valuable the Korea bootcamp could be, but then ended up learning much in terms of team fight and aggression. But that's only been a little while ago, about a week ago, since they were still in Korea. So can they adapt that fast enough? Or has it been too much of a shock effect, leading to some more difficulty in scrim that you talked about recently, Calder?
My biggest concern at this point is really the doubt that might be in their head right now. Because Koreans usually are very confident in their abilities, and for a very good reason. In any esports, they are all the way up at the top. They have a great infrastructure over there in Korea, and also a very good attitude towards practice and training. And I could definitely see that at this point, Expert might be doubting themselves a little bit, have some confidence issues, and that could be reflected in the gameplay. So for me, the first games here is a little bit just to... They don't necessarily have to come out crushing the Korean team here, but I just want to see how do they present themselves and what kind of Expert are we dealing with for the entire group stage.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, there might be a level of agitation, be it this is the last day of groups. They've obviously had a lot of preparation leading into this event for the opening week, but now they've come into day number 4. They've seen what other teams have been doing. Obviously, you've had a lot of scrims to practice around with. And scrims, you obviously always got to take it with a grain of salt, right, Grubby? You can't really look at those and say, look, we've beaten this team 10-2. We're going to absolutely destroy them on the day.
Yeah, in fact, experts said that they scrimmed with Ballastix, which always feels a little weird to me because they're going to meet each other.
Right.
But they went a little bit easier, not showing everything, obviously, since they all know that they're in the same group.
We are ready for this best of 3 between Expert and Ballastix, the number 3 seed in Europe taking on the number 2 seed out of Korea as we start on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Looking there, I see Bad Benny saying he wants to drop the beat, so maybe a roll swap already happening here. He's going to go into the Lucia, perhaps.
I think it's more the reference to Hooligan here. And it's still misquoted. What Hooligan was trying to say was drop the bits, and everybody misunderstood that. He couldn't really express himself properly there, and of course it got lost in translation a bit as well.
So instead of getting some bits to have his team supported, he got mixtapes sent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so important, correct pronunciation.
Still a win, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there could be some really good music in there. Here we are, Medivh banned by Ballastix.
Homework done.
Yeah, homework done. That is something that we criticized a lot of other teams, especially our Chinese contenders here at the tournament, have not really done a lot of homework when it came to North America,
Right.
which was very transparent in the first few days. But of course, Medivh, always a huge staple in the lineup of Team Expert with ADRD. In Europe, it's more or less an auto ban against them, especially on a map as Tomb of the Spider Queen, where they get a lot of value. So I really like that Ballastix have researched the team a lot. They scrimmed against them, as we heard before, so they are just playing it safe.
I'm expecting a support ban to come in here. They decided to go for the ETC instead, so no mosh pits. We didn't really see too much mosh pit value at this tournament, as you were discussing before, Cowdo, during that cast, but the cow was gone.
It's not so much which hero Expert banned as the time which they spent on it that really surprises me. They used the full 45-second time pool, and Medivh could have been a predictable ban. So it's clear that they're going by daily shape and feeling, at least in part, because you could have written all this down on a piece of paper a week ago. If we get Tomb of the Spider Queen, they ban Medivh, we do what? So this part is, to me, interesting. They're going with their heart.
With HGC being banned, the one thing that we also have to talk about, except him being, of course, a fantastic frontliner and bringing a lot of value with mosh pits and the power slides, the rotations, he's oftentimes played when you are trying to head into a hyper carry, because thanks to face melt, he can create a lot of space for his team. He's also a great counter against someone like Garrosh, for example, simply because he can, after a quick pull, always push him away here. So with that, it's already trying to nibble away at potential hyper carry compositions on the side of Ballastix, and I like that approach.
I mean, that's what I was going to say, sort of like leading into my point. We know that SCSC tends to be a big focal point for Ballastix. They like to try and pick him up on the Vala, on the Grey main, hence why I think that the Testar first pick is indicative of that. The Tracer Ufa feels a little bit reminiscent of when we had Dignitas play up against Tempest, of trying to deny the Tracer.
Yeah.
Not necessarily if you need it, if you want it, let's just use it.
But we have... go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, as you said with SCSC, both of the ranged assassins are very high statistically and are the ones to watch out for here. SCSC averages 4.4 kills per game, which is the highest of any HGC player, but Nick tops the charts for both average hero damage per game and average hero damage per minute, so definitely keep your eye on those two.
What I really like here is, so Tracer, of course, is a bit of a deny pick. You see the Tassadar early on, you know that there's very likely a hyper carry play being executed, and on this map, Tracer can absolutely excel. An Expert is confident enough in their abilities to say, we don't need Tassadar to make this work. We've actually seen that more and more happening throughout the tournament here. And Ballastix reacts immediately with Murden, which I think is not really a surprise given how he has risen to the top in the tanks. We already have a good tank band out in the form of ETC, so that makes a lot of sense. But Ballastix felt forced to go into the early Vala pick here, whereas previously we've oftentimes seen the damage dealer drop down to the bottom picks a little bit more, since you are quite flexible with Vala, Lunara, you can drop a Cassia here as well. But right now, as Tracer is already taken away, they were a little bit worried that maybe Expert is targeting the range damage dealers. They're playing it safe now and saying we have a very stable start, we have good synergy between the heroes, let's not risk anything here and just play the first game a bit more cautious.
Yeah, because in theory, Expert could have banned Vala, picked Grey main. Suddenly you find yourself without an amazing Tassadar synergy.
Exactly. And right now, I love the Garrosh ban here because we've just talked about how ETC could potentially set up for that. And on this map, there's value. And if you follow Team Expert, then you know that they have played. They're one of the few European teams that actually plays Garrosh, since most European teams say, we don't really see his value since we are very good drafting around him and playing around him. But Expert is one of the few teams that said, hey, Garrosh, you know what? We can actually make him work, and this is one of their favorite maps to pull him out there. So I like what Ballastix is doing, and I'm a really big fan of their bans.
Yeah, honestly, could have seen Garrosh come out in those first 2 picks after the ETC ban. But yeah, the next 2 picks would have been a great option. Now not possible anymore. Expert. They have a lot of special picks that they make work. Chromie, Illidan, Diablo, Medivh. Of course, Medivh is already gone. A lot of options.
I absolutely agree with what you, by the way, just said. I could have seen an earlier Garrosh pick for Expert as well, if not for that Tracer that signaled, hey, we want to have a Tracer composition, the Tassadar pick. So then they had to react, and with Tracer, they just wanted to make sure that they also have a panic button with Uther and the Divine Shield. Now we also have Chromie taken. Very unlikely that we're actually going to see Nyx Chromie in this game. This is most likely going to be AD/RD on the hero and Nick on Tracer. Malfurion being added to that, since we still want to have that double support. And for Tomb of the Spider Queen, Malfurion is one of the best supports by far. He has wave clear, he has interrupt against channels, he's going to give you the additional lockdown. Like, he is the second support on this map.
My point exactly, and to add to that even further, it gives you the entangling route, as well as the Twilight Dream to prevent any sort of all-in dive potential, right? So if they do, on the side of Ballastix now, go for, say, example, a Sonya and a Lucio, that would, to a degree, shut things down. But as you say, the Malfurion, especially the way that we saw Tempo Storm play it as well, acting as almost like a boomkin. You're a poor man's Gul'dan, so to speak.
Very poor, but yeah, he has many aspects to him, Malfurion. Question is now, how do you deal with this team of Expert? It's 3 squishy backliners. Greymane will be the name of the game. Greymane and Rhaegar. We've got the double support comp here with Rhaegar and Tassadar. Greymane and Myrddin can jump in and find the target. A very well-rounded composition by Ballastix that doesn't lean too heavily in really any aspect of the game.
Seems very early game focused, if you ask me. A lot of auto attack damage there, looking to try and find some kills, isolate those targets, and go for that early snowball.
Well, you can never forget about that level 20 Tassadar. There's power in every aspect of the game flow, I believe. Either Twilight Archon or Force Barriers every 3 seconds. Tassadar is a late game monster. Now Expert needs to pick their warrior. Could see, I would say probably Johanna is most likely.
This is the one time I'm thinking, actually, I like the idea of Johanna. We've been discussing Johanna in the opening few days and thinking, I'm not a big fan of this one. Arthas to a degree. I mean, let's not forget him. Arthas is definitely still available on the board, and he'll usually be your go-to, right, Caldor?
I'm also a bit... Like, my initial thought was immediately, okay, Chromie, AD/RD, Tracer, Nick, but there is actually also a scenario where they switch that around and put Zero into the damage position since they don't have the offlaner here. So traditionally...
So Zero, Tracer?
Could actually be a variation, because oftentimes when they have a double support, it's actually AD/RD jumping on that second support. So there's with the hero pool overlap that they have, there's 2 ways how they could approach this, and that's going to have a big impact on how aggressive they are.
So one thing I want to talk about is this composition coming out of Expert is very reminiscent to what we saw Darksider try to do on Brax's holdout. Only adaptation I'm hoping we'll get to see is that slowing stance. There's a lot of point control in those choke spots themselves. So, you know, if the likes of Vala, Myrddin, Rhaegar, even Greymane get too aggressive, there is going to be a lot of punishing potential that Expert can look to try and shift the balance into their favor.
Johanna is sitting at a 1 out of these 6 games that she has been played, only winning 1. How do you guys feel about that Johanna pick here? Do you feel like it suits the composition?
Well, I think it makes sense. I think either Johanna or, strangely enough, Arthas would have worked as well. They're 2 a little bit more passive warriors, but that's totally okay, because Tracer and Chromie don't really need a warrior to go in order to be effective. Tracer is very mobile. Chromie can attack from very far. So you just need a very stable presence, ideally, that can pick up gems, and Johanna does exactly that.
I will say there's one thing, though. The reason I prefer the Johanna as opposed to the Arthas is it gives you the wave clear, which they need to be a little bit more reliable. Otherwise, they're relying far too much on the ideas of Malfurion, even Chromie having to utilize her one-shot cooldown, so to speak, on a minion wave. Plus, it gives you the blinding potential. Yes, you can make the argument that Arthas has that sort of slowing capacity, but the blind could and should find some value.
I like Johanna for the reasons mentioned. Wave clear alone, the blinds that Skimmy just pointed out. Another hero, when we're theory crafting, that could have fit here is, for example, Stitches. With Stitches, you could have had the follow-up, you get the hook in, but then you also play a little bit more one-dimensional that you want to be. With Johanna, they have more potential to engage into the opponent, lead with a Blessed Shield, for example, try the Malfurion route. So it's 2 different playstyles. With Johanna, you're a bit more aggressive. With Stitches, you would have looked for those hooks and isolation kills.
Well, guys, we are ready. Europe takes on Korea yet again. Let's check in with Kalaris and Wolf for game 1.
That's right. Thank you, Gilly. One of the most anticipated fixtures here of the entire group stage as a defending BlizzCon champions goes up against Expert, who has made waves in the past couple of months.
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely one of my most excited matchups coming into this tournament. Ballastix looking to be back on point, kind of rising back towards their former BlizzCon champion selves. A lot of Korean teams giving a lot of respect to Team Expert right now. Bad Benny's ETC play, his tank play, and I think this is going to be a great best of 3, man.
Yeah, so do I. We're going to be going into this map in just a few seconds' time. Team of the Spider Queen to determine who's going to take the lead to start things off here. And as I mentioned before, these two teams, extremely high level. When you get to see Ballastix clash against Team Expert here, I'm excited for this one, Wolf.
Oh, so am I. Let's go ahead and jump into this and introduce our blue team here on the left side of the map. It is Team Ballastix, otherwise known as L5. SC is going to be on the Vala. I have Hooligan on Muradin. I have Jungha on Greymane, of course. Will be SDE on the Tassadar. And last but not least, Swoy bringing up the Rhaegar.
Love that they're using the mounts. Love that they've got the sprays, all repping very nicely. To the right-hand side, Curson on Malfurion. We have Bad Benny going to be rocking Johanna. Next up, Athero will be on Tracer. ADRD on Uther. And finally, it's Nick going to be playing the Chromie for Team Expert.
So I want to ask you, where do you sit on the Johanna Stitches debate here? Because I really like the Johanna. I think it's a safer pick. You've got the blinds for the volley. You've got that needed wave clear. I'm a big fan of it.
It's a good question because I felt like both could have fit. Not dissimilar to Kaldor's kind of point of view that we saw there. Obviously, it would have coupled lovely with the Malfurion and things, but he was totally right on the point that it's a bit more one-dimensional.
Yeah, very much a kind of, it gives you the safe opportunities to clear waves, to blind, but doesn't give you opportunities for picks necessarily, especially on this map. Not as easy to get those kills with the Blessed Shield, and it's a double DPS comp for Ballastix, so getting just a single pick or attempting to get that pick on the DPS isn't necessarily going to be what you want.
Yeah, so Team Expert comes into this game to start things off with the less structural damage we take early on, the more powerful our mid-game is going to be, because Nick will have more places to retreat back to if that kind of flank or dive is to come in. And obviously, those ways are limited by taking less structural damage.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And on this map, oftentimes, because the objective doesn't really push very hard, you can control the first few, and even if you lose the first one, you do keep those forts alive very often. Not going to lose all your walls to the first web weavers, but very passive player from Expert, respecting the fact that their comp does need to keep Chromie alive. Just going to poke where he can, and this is a very even game at this stage.
And Nick will need someone to babysit him throughout all of the early game, because he needs someone, ideally someone like Bad Benny, to go forward, grab those globes for him, and then pull back. So it's a very slow style for someone like Nick in this game.
Yeah, certainly. Odd that we see Ballastix running double DPS. We've seen mostly this been run with the Falstad out of the Asian team so far. Will be the Greymane volley here. So going back to Ballastix roots, just the solo support here. 2 DPSs. They have a lot of wave clear as a result. And that again goes back to that Johanna pick. They have a pick here though.
Oh, did not actually kill that off there. So he keeps himself alive to start things. And Athero, got to be a bit salty about that one. I felt like he was on the kill there.
Yeah, it's a bit odd. I don't know exactly what happened with that pulse bomb there. Might have actually been a prediction mistake in-game, as it might have looked like in the client it connected, but it did not. We'll never know, but...
I think it was a task shield at the very last second.
Okay.
So...
Very, very survivable there.
Yeah.
You have the task star shield, but close call nonetheless there for Swoy. Good supports here coming out for SDE, who said, in his opening interview that he wants to make a name for himself on the Tastar, show how good of a Tastar player he is.
Right.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, get those shields going. If you can negate the damage, it's very nicely done. At the moment, Ballastix at this bottom lane getting a lot of value.
Yeah, doing a lot of damage. Again, that wave clear control they have with Vala, Greymane, Tastar, Rhaegar. I mean, these are 4 heroes that have fantastic wave clear. It's tough for Team Expert to keep up. Just going to see them continue to rotate here very aggressively, knowing that, again, Expert for the time being has to play defensively, has to protect Nick. So there's not much Expert can do to punish this aggressive rotation with the wave clear.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on the money with that. Ballastix here is orchestrating this very well, and they're just being able to gather up the gems nicely with someone like Rhaegar at the front. As much as his support, he's a great candidate to be able to carry around some of those gems, get them turned in. 26 in at the moment.
Yeah, okay, we're going to see a little bit of a skirmish here, but this is going to just basically be actually the first time I think that Ballastix kind of gets punished for overextending. expect we'll have to deal with these minions for just a moment. Team Expert arguably has the better control of the objective. Sure, there's Tastar on the side of Ballistix, but Expert has Shield Glare, has Chromium, and Moonfire. That's all I really need to say. It's tough for Ballistix to get turn-ins.
An attempt onto Bad Benny here at the moment. The pulse bomb goes down on Hooligan, but another shield sucks up a lot of it. That's first blood going over to Ballistix. Absolutely destroyed and grouped up on.
Looks like this might be an opportunity for Ballistix to get the first complete turn in here. They have enough carried at the moment with that pick onto Bad Benny. A lot of interruption removed.
And I'll tell you something. If SDE continues the shield saving of cooldowns for when those pulse bombs go down, he will be remembered as a strong Tassadar like he wanted at the beginning.
Exactly. And, you know, there's been many Korean Tassadars criticized in the past. Everyone knows Kyocha back in the spring season. SDE criticized season long for just being a Tassadar main. I was like, oh, Tassadar's such an easy hero to play, but I think it does take a lot of skill, a lot of understanding of timings. Talk about things like Force Walls and Archons. There's definitely a huge gap between a mediocre Tassadar and a pro gamer Tassadar like we see here.
Dragon's Eye at 7, I say 7 in inverted commas, has been picked up for Chromie, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
So I'm wondering what we get, Temporal Loop or Slowing Sands. I'd much rather Slowing Sands because obviously the cleanse factor, but also the shields and things like that. You're going to have to really blow someone up fast. And sometimes you see it against double support, but it's like double main support, which can be an answer sometimes.
Yeah, I completely agree because you have the ability to just Ancestral the second it's finished there. Pre-Ancestral, it's going to get the heals, the shields you mentioned. I think Slowing Sands is going to give you better opportunities to catch a Murden who's trying to retreat. For example, you have so much CC with the Uther, with the Johanna, if you could slow someone into an area in order to do that. So I think that's the better choice here. We'll see what she ends up picking as that level 8 does come around the corner here.
Taking away all the walls, took down bottom 4, Athero putting pressure towards Yonghan. Doesn't quite do anything. So this is where Chromie's going to have to stick mostly to that top bottom. This is a big dive on Curson. That's a good kill. Ballistix pick up a second.
Very quick rotation through here. When you have a Rhaegar like this too, you can just sweep up real fast. The disruption there in mid drew the attention away. You do see Slowing Sands picked up, as you were saying, you thought was a better choice. But the scary thing for Team Expert right now is 10's right around the corner for Ballistix. This allows them to be aggressive. They don't have enough for a turn-in just yet, but Team Expert somehow needs to prevent that double turn-in without having level 10. They have a window of time they can try to catch up here, but if we see the double turn-in, we're not talking about walls anymore, we're talking about elimination of all Experts' keeps. Or sorry, forts, I should say.
Yeah, that's true.
Big distinction there.
A different layer, different layer. SC going to turn in some gems, or actually moves back, realizing that he is in vision for a moment, and will move away. Nick looking just clean up this hard camp, and this is being saved. Although this invade, he realizes Anathero will capture it. Good moves by Ballistic, good anticipation.
Let's see already what Slowing Sands can accomplish. It slows down these minion waves even, put SC in a very vulnerable position, but now that they can avoid it, they can start poking. They have so much sieging poke on the side of Ballistix with the range they have. Chromie has poke in terms of doing hero damage, and Ballistix has poke to do structural damage with Greymane Bala.
And something that's very important about Chromie, especially Slowing Sands, that is undervalued, I would say, and not really kind of referenced much in Heroes of the Storm, is that it actually buys a little bit of time, especially for you on a small map like this, for the rest of your team to get level 10. Imagine if that Slowing Sands hadn't been there, and Ballistix with level 10 just asserts their dominance on mid lane.
That's right. I mean, Greymane just presses W, keeps shooting, and just keep throwing out those hungering arrows, and eventually this gets worn down for the wave clear you're talking about. So agree completely. It's not just for helping the longer team fights, getting those picks. It can be used against mini waves as well.
All right, so Hooligan just takes a few shots to the face. We'll back off. And there is level 10 now for Team Expert. So they're not feeling too pressured as the turning comes down.
I think we're just going to see all standard heroics here. There's no real argument for even the Tranquility. It's just he didn't click it yet. There's the Twilight Dream. You know, the Falling Sword just isn't going to work against this composition. It would be suicidal to try to hard engage into a soul support double DPS.
Unless you had something like Sonya instead of a Tracer to then go for a leap in tandem with it. Yeah. Bless you for the win. Oh, see, a lot of damage, but not killed off, and that's the cooldown of the pulse bomb wasted for now.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, Jungha and the rest of his team were up at the front, just putting pressure onto Nick, so he couldn't get that follow-up shot to actually finish him off. And I like the fact that Swoy is so willing to hold on to the Ancestral. No panic there, very calm and collected, knowing that's not going to be a kill.
Yeah, very, very true. Root's go down on Hooligan, actually takes a lot of damage. He will jump away, though. Does he have third wind? No, he doesn't. So
Nope.
it'll take a little while longer for him to actually heal up.
At least for him, he is running that avatar, you know, unlike Hong Kono, who I think definitely was trying to get famous yesterday with his Storm Bolt, or sorry, his Haymakers. It certainly did not work out in the end.
The craziest guy in the game.
Craziest guy in this tournament, potentially, but no longer. Rip 1/3 of Korea. But, you know, I like the build here. It's safe. It's good for the map. You're rotating around. You want to get those hammers out. Obviously, with the poke that Expert is lacking, third wind isn't going to be as useful in most cases. But right now, Team Expert just, again, they need to prevent this turn-in, but they want to do so without losing all their gems. If they fail to stop this turn-in and lose 3 of their members, for example, they might just lose the game as a result because they just have so many carried at the moment. In total, with 41 turn-in, 55 carried. That's a whole nother second turn-in if they can hold on to those.
And there is going to be the full turn-in going down as Team Expert get themselves the Red Web Weavers about to descend in just a moment's time. So Ballastix, how are they going to set up? Looks like pressure on towards the middle at the moment, pressuring back Bad Benny. He throws out his shield, he'll be fine for now.
Yeah. I've noticed this a lot of Western teams. Oftentimes when you get that turn in, you feel like, okay, let's set up to maybe get a pick. They're already posturing back. We can catch them on the retreat. But Ballastix did the opposite. They actually dove in there and tried to punish Expert getting the position. Bad Benny is positioning himself so well, though he's blocking a lot of the damage, and he's just constantly protecting Nick. He's just healing so well, and now these Web Weavers start to hit these walls. This could be Expert because of the experience still stored in these structures, their opportunity to catch up in talent tiers here.
And it's very patient Johanna play. Before the rework came along, you felt like you were pretty much indestructible. You could go and sit in the middle of a lot of members and tank for a while and then run out. Nowadays, Johanna is in a bit of a more vulnerable spot, even though she's still very, very tanky. But you do have to pick your battles very carefully.
You certainly do. Ooh, SDE. Speaking of picking his battles, that was a good pick there by Nick. SDE's going to eat one to the face here, just making sure they can get through. I actually like the Holy Shock for Uther here because it gives you the opportunity to try to get those picks after. Because Chromie can nearly one-shot anybody, but there's sometimes that 10% health left and the Uther just gets the last hit there.
And especially when you're pushing as a Chromie with Web Weavers, you can actually somewhat predict where your opponents are going to be, as Hooligan will get out, because you know that the Web Weaver is going to shoot that Web Blast down. Yeah. They have to be on either side because they don't want to get hit by the Web Blast. So Chromie has a bit of an easier time pushing whilst Web Weavers are pushing.
It's kind of like Lava Wave. It functions in a similar way, right, in terms of zoning heroes out to try to get picks or try to get that damage done. You see that Ballastix gets another turn in here as Hooligan gets out, but now it's kind of an awkward angle here for Team Expert. Good retreat, though, not going to stick around too long.
Bad Benny burnt his Blessed Shield there, didn't connect with Muradin, so that's going to be down for a little while this turning does go down, trying to chunk this as quickly as possible.
Yeah, again, just using these slowing sands to stop the chunking from coming through here from Jung Up. He's in position now, and I don't think Team Expert can really find a pick here. In fact, they're not really even doing much to this Web Weaver at the moment. As you can see, the split off of SC to the top lane, getting that extra experience, doing that extra direct damage here to grab this top fort. And that scenario I was talking about, all forts down, is now the case here, and even keep walls are being threatened, Polaris. So Team Expert needs to be careful. This is an aggressive move by Bad Bunny, but they're just so desperate to keep this wall alive. They're about to be down a talent tier.
You can see that Bad Benny can be on the other side of that wall safe because of the slowing sands. Actually, you know, if Greymane actually wants to jump in and try and put some pressure onto Johanna, then he's in slowing sands, and then it's a hard time.
Yeah.
So this is really a smart defense, but they are still losing structures, as you mentioned.
Yeah, you know, I feel like it's in Team Expert's case. I think their comp can get strong as we go to the late game if they can get some good blessing shields, get some fights where they're not actually just being shoved so far behind their walls.
Yep.
So just play it safe, play it patient, but look for a big pick. You don't have a dive comp fully because you have this Tracer and Chromie, right? It's not a double support that's designed to allow Tracer to carry like as a single DPS. Kind of trying to defensively poke, maybe you get a defensive pick. You go to the late game with your keeps up, you've still got an opportunity back into the game. However, if you do just kind of sit there and defend and defend and defend, then suddenly you've got 84 gems carried, your keeps get worn down, turn-ins keep hitting you, so it is a bit of a catch-22 problem right now for Team Expert.
And SC's been on par with them. He's been poking just as well as they've been poking, especially when Johanna's been at the forefront of the fights. So, and he's one of the best ranged assassins in the game, so it's fair.
It's tough, you know, with the amount of shielding here and with Ancestral available to try to even Blessed Shield, Chromie combo somebody with a Tracer Pulse. This is very difficult. Uh-oh, Nick's in vulnerable spots here. They're going to switch the targets here, though. Good ice block from Person to stay alive. SC is in trouble. There's the Pulse, and down goes Bala.
Good pick up here for Expert to start things off. Will they get more, though? Slowing sands on Hooligan at the moment. There goes the Blessed Shield onto 3. Avatar has been popped here. They're still putting pressure on him. Actually interrupted on that Twilight Dream. Not too bad, considering that will pretty much saves Hooligan.
Good Divine as well here to keep him alive. ADRD, though, eventually should fall. We'll have some extra healing to try to heal Curson. Over the wall here, just barely gets out. Cocktail, not enough.
Great turnaround. Really good turnaround.
He shouldn't stay here, though. He shouldn't stay here. The next Cocktail could kill him.
Yep.
Oh, that was a close call.
Johanna goes down as well over at the front there. Unfortunate for Team Expert. Ballastix turned that around so nicely, and it all really began with that interrupt on the Twilight Dream.
It certainly did. The Twilight Dream would have actually, I think, punished Ballastix so hard they would have gotten wiped potentially there, but as it is, they survived. They're going to make a boss play here. 3 still dead, especially those later delayed respawn timers from Team Expert means they're just simply not going to be able to contest. This is a double DPS. Q Vala build here has just arrived, as you can see. SC, John and them are going to make quick work of it. With solo DPS Vala or Greymane, this might have been a riskier move, but an Expert just has to sit back and defend. Ballastix is going to try to send this boss with a minion wave and a turn-in. So this is going to be pretty fearsome, what we're about to see here. This could be a push to end. And again, Expert has done good at mitigating the damage on these pushes, but I mean, when we're talking a boss and all the poke they have, can they really stop this from going directly to the core? I'm not so sure.
And this timing.
Yeah, perfectly timed so that it comes with the Web Weavers. Look at how this is going to work out. Let's watch this Web Weaver come. They're going to come like basically in step, like the boss and the Web Weavers are going to be in tango here, like they're on the dance floor.
These two are the king and the queen of Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Oh, look at this.
Look at it.
I mean, this is just brilliant. Comes in right here at the front. Second, the health bar appears. Boom, right there together. Such good timing from Ballastix, a team that's known for macro play.
This is a lot of pressure now. Team Expert has to try and hold on at this defense. They know the other 2 lanes, not as important right now with this boss pushing. It's almost guaranteed to keep. Hooligan goes in, tries to launch with the Stormbolt, doesn't connect.
It's so difficult to get through the front of Hooligan, who I don't think has even had to avatar a single time this game. He's blocking Chromie's DPS here, blocking those shots. Tracer's finding having a tough time finding an angle.
Hooligan doesn't connect again. Uncharacteristic here as Hooligan misses a few times. Web Weaver, though, blasts Bad Benny. Half health at the moment. They're going to march on towards the core here. They know they've got a lot of health still on this boss.
Okay, with the Avatar popped here, he does directly go to the core, now trying to zone out Bad Benny, who is the target. Divine Shield has to be used. We do see that Blessed Shield as well coming through, but not really gaining them anything. Boss will go down here. It looks like Ballastix wants to make a play to retreat south here towards that mid-keep. Maybe they'll take it out on their way out. Looks like they're just going to play a little bit safer.
Seems like they should be able to get out. SDE with a preemptive shift there, dimensional shift, so he can get away from the shots that were raining in from Chromie. And overall, a good pickup by Ballastix. They did exactly what they needed to do, and they haven't lost anyone yet.
I feel like the story of this game has just been Expert is playing so safe and so well. It's just, unfortunately, that's not good enough. You know, we could talk about how good their defense is. A lot of other teams would have died to that push with a perfect time boss with those Web Weavers that were spawning at the keep wall. But Expert survives. However, what do they gain? What tools do they have?
This play is fantastic from Ballastix, going around the corner, striking at ADRD, and he will fall. No anticipation of that. Expert was caught completely off guard.
Just understanding the lack of vision. Okay, looks like SC will survive for now. Understanding the lack of vision there, because all the Web Weavers pushed the minion waves out, there was no way for Expert to know where they were. With the respawns coming into this, didn't have any heroes on the map, and now at 17 minutes, all 3 keeps are dead. Hooligan's going to go down. Maybe they can make a play here.
Yeah, maybe they can. Like, trying to blind them as much as possible at the moment. We have Greymane very, very low. Zhongha is going to have to back on out. Nick looks for the connection. Just a little too far.
Here's the reveal. They're going to try to get one more shot, potentially. I think it's too far away.
Too far, yeah. Too far. So they will get away. And
I mean, that was kind of a crazy play. Zhongha was willing to turn around there despite not having the Ancestral. They were far enough away, and now, like, Clash, what does Expert do? They put their backs against the wall. No keeps. They have got enough for a turn-in, but they can't contest it because they have level 20 against them. Do they just sit back again and defend for 20? I feel like it's not going to gain them anything.
We've seen crazier recoveries, but the one thing that is glaring to me is that Tassadar has negated any effort. Apart from 1 kill on Valor, he has negated any effort that we've seen Chromie and Tracer have for a blow-up.
Yeah.
SDE has been on point with that, so they need to somehow bait a target to be shielded and then try and punish another one.
I mean, they know Ancestral's down. They saw it. Maybe if they could try to get a kill onto SDE himself, it could
Maybe.
win them the longer fight. They could bait a dimensional shift, as you're saying.
But how do you kill a Tassadar?
Yeah, it's so tough, man. He's going to be able to be shielded. He can shield himself. He can dimensional shift. He can be healed. Ancestral's going to be up at 25. This team just doesn't have a good initiation minus the Blessed Shield to start a fight off right. They have a very defensive setup, and Ballastix is abusing it with the poke. They have 2 ranged DPSs, the range from Tassadar. Look at all this Side Storm damage. Now they've got Twilight Archon. They might just do, as we saw Tempest do yesterday, walk to the core and end with that Twilight Archon.
An attempt at damage on Hooligan, but it's going to be fraught with danger for Bad Benny, as he has to walk through 2 Side Storms, and when you have to do that, you're basically taking like 700
There's just
damage.
so much range damage. It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even agree with the Lightning Bond choice here with how passive they're playing. Like, may have wanted to do something else there. Might have wanted to get Wolf Run for fast rotations because we're not seeing aggressive play here, not getting much value out of the Lightning Bond. It's just simply moving forward, posturing. Now they've got the catapults here. You can see Nick is in the top lane trying to clear that, and I don't know, man. Look at the Side Storm damage coming through. They're looking for picks, so they want to end this right now. They're closing the door on this game.
I mean, Ballastix literally wants to go for the throat with Unleashed at level 20 as well. Get your additional charge if they just want to smash through this competition.
Which means Nick has to be so far back, which means it's tough for him to get damage, and you can see a little bit done here, but it's just simply not enough. That needs to be paired with a Pulse Bomb. As we saw, the 2 kills in this game were situations like that. Here comes Hooligan.
Yeah, looking for the lockdown, and that's going to be very quick on Bad Benny. He falls fast, as that's going to be ADRD also being pressured. A combo comes in. He almost dies, but it's not going to be enough. Uther is going to be the next to fall.
Okay, he has the ability to just keep his Twilight Archon going. I think this is going to be core. Too much damage here. SDE does go down. That'll be the 3rd kill for Expert, but they fall here in game number 1. Good rage, good control of the poke, safe play from both teams, and that's why we have a game that went pretty long. We're talking nearly level 20 for both teams, but only 11 kills on the board because of the passive nature of these 2 teams. But with the compositions chosen, I think that won out for Ballastix. They had more poke, and it was just defend, defend, defend for Expert.
To me, they had more control over every single fight. With the blow-up potential on the side of Team Expert that was thwarted again and again and again, I feel that Expert moving forwards needs to go for something that's a more sustained team fight. And in those moments, look for mistakes on the side of Ballastix.
Would agree with you there, Caleris. Let's see what our desk has to say about it, though, as we throw it back over to see what they think about that game. Hold on.
Thank you, guys. Tomb of the Spider Queen is dead and gone, with Ballastix getting a victory 1-0. Skimmy, it kind of felt like it was a slow game blown open by just one single play.
I mean, it felt almost a bit like both of these teams trying to feel each other out. Okay, what have you got? What have we got? And you could feel there was a lot of tension that was there, and it sort of all unleashed that one big fight around that top hand, and they go for the kill. Initially, it looked so good as a result of that kill by Afira on Tracer, trading out SCSC on the Valor, but then suddenly the Twilight Dream gets interrupted. Hooligan survives. They turn things around. They get the kills. The gems are gone. They get the gem hand in. They get the top boss. And without any gems, without any level 20 catch-up potential, very limited options for Expert to try and get themselves back into that one. And that was their map choice, which, as I'm sure you're going to say, Caldor, is what you do best.
Yeah, like Tomb of the Spider Queen is definitely a map where Expert usually excels, and I'm not too unhappy with it. As I said, for me it was I want to see how they perform, and not necessarily that they have to win the game. You can lose and still make a good showing. And as you said, it was in the end, it was an interrupted Twilight Dream that decided most of it. If the Twilight Dream goes through, Meridian probably falls. You have a 5 versus 3, and the more important part, you don't lose. I think it was 40 gems that they lost at that moment. So overall, the Koreans are extremely strong, as expected. Fantastic control by them and great play. But Expert, you can see that there are moments where they can try and turn a game and maybe take a map here. So pretty solid first game.
Grubby, the drafting for Ballastix seemed like they had every single point under control.
Now we're guessing here, right, on the analysis desk. We don't know what they're thinking, but you look at it and you see Expert. They took a long time to think about their first ban. Could have been Tassadar, which is a really popular ban. Could have been ETC, and then when ETC got removed, you think, you know, maybe they want Garrosh. Garrosh is easily interrupted, his combo by ETC. But then when Tassadar comes out, it's like, well, we're not going to give Tassadar Tracer, not to SCSC, not to Ballastix. So then they feel compelled to take Tracer. And from there on, it looked like the entire draft was controlled by Ballastix. Still, there were some cool moments by Expert. level 12 versus 13 moment where we had a lot of poke wars, a lot of turn-in denials from both teams, where it looked like Expert was up to scratch together there with Ballastix, but Ballastix just played a little bit too solid.
I think the most important part for me personally is just the fact that usually you're going to a series, you should know what your draft and your preparation going into this should be, right? So the fact that they take the full 60 seconds to go, I guess it's ETC.
That's the weird one.
It seems a bit bizarre to me, right? Because then as you say, Gilly, the systematic of like, we go tester, you're forced to go for this one. You want that Garrosh, we're not going to let you have it. It seemed like, yeah, L5 or Ballastix in this case knew what they wanted.
Well, let's see if Ballastix can do it again in the draft. But before we get to game 2, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
The 2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
That's right. Thank you to our sponsors. We are in the middle of the best of 3 between Expert as well as Ballastix, our previous BlizzCon champions from last year. Granted, with a couple of different players this time. Kaldar, you know Expert well in this situation, being down the first game, especially on Tomb. Do you believe that we're going to be looking at a first pick situation, or you think they'll make sure to get their own battleground?
It's actually a really good question, and I can't really give you an answer since they've done both in the past. So traditionally in Europe, you would expect the first pick to be taken. But if there is a team out within the top 3 that would get over and say, okay, we want to play a particular battleground, it's them. Now for me, also why the question is interesting is, what does Expert want from the group? Are they willing to concede, hey, Ballastix is so strong, they are going to take the first seed and we are fighting for second seed here? Then they might not be willing to, for example, show a draft specifically designed for a particular map and wait for a later game to use that. So I would probably expect them more to head into the first pick here, which is a little bit more traditional. But overall, they could do both. They have a couple of drafts prepared for most maps.
Grubby, we've been talking a lot about the tournament meta. Has there been any big surprises for you meta-wise?
Well, we thought it was going to be all double support. I mean, if you read Reddit, and some people do, it's like, oh, double support, it's everywhere. But we're not drowning in it, really. There are single support comps, and they are working just fine. For me, that's one surprise. And yeah, for the rest, I think it's, you know, there are small surprises, but I think the biggest one really was from your countrymates, Roll20, Diva, Sergeant Hammer.
Oh, well, why, thank you. I'll also take that and run with it.
And nearly won against Team Dignitas with it as well. So, you know, these Diva picks, these have been really cool. Love to see more of that.
Well, before we get into, I want to hear you guys too and what you're thinking of the meta, but let's check in with the Battleground pool and see where we're going for game 2 between Ballastix and Expert. Ballastix choosing Dragonshire. And this has been a favored battleground for all of our Korean teams here at the HGC Finals. That does mean the Expert chose first pick. Skimmy, any surprises for you meta-wise this event so far?
I mean, it seems a little bit reminiscent of what we've seen going from these clashes into this event here, where if you are going to go that single support, you're going to patch it with a specialist, be it Medivh, be it Abathur, to try and complement it and sort of follow that typical style of the hyper-carry aggression that we've come to grow quite used to. But I think really for me, it's the resurgence, really, I suppose, of the Brightwing, the Karazim. EU learned about it, I suppose, with their time over in Korea, and Korea showing that, hey, we don't need to necessarily use this, but more so kind of like the hashing of that attempt that Fnatic did, where they just ran the solo Brightwing and saying, look, we're going to try and hide as many cards as possible.
Also, very small specialist count. Abathur sees some play. I think he's been played about 6 times so far in the tournament. Medivh has seen a little bit of play, even more bans, but we don't really see the ranged stuff throwers like Osmodan, Zagara, and Nazeebo. Yeah, Sergeant Hammer.
Was some hammer time. The funny thing was when at some point China was also extremely confused about the lack of double support, so they were trying to go for triple support so that we average out on 2 again. But
those numbers up.
I know you only get away with that when you're L5 versus MVP Black. Here we go. Game 2, Ballastix up 1-0 in this best of 3 as we kick things off on Dragonshire with Team Expert having first pick, first ban.
Now again, in theory, this should not take all too long. I mean, the only new information that Expert has to digest is the previous game. And it was very smart drafting pattern by Ballastix, but the picks themselves couldn't surprise too much. So a much quicker pick this time around by Team Expert, going to be removing Genji.
The thing for me really is that when you talk about the speed of picks and bans, I, in probably any case, would agree with you. This is the one exception. ADRD has a mind of his own,
games,
and nobody really knows how it works. And so, when you watch scrims with them, sometimes the bans and picks, it's just absolutely crazy what happens. And you look at this like, was that a misclick? Because afterwards, they oftentimes correct wrong picks and say like, yeah, we ran out of time, but we want to scrim this. And yeah, Expert is definitely a case of their own. So usually he has a very good grasp of what he wants to play, but I think it figures really also into this, how much do we really already want to show? Because for many people, this is the real group depth, so it's going to be really hard. All 4 teams with a bit of luck could make it out.
That's true.
I like the adaptation already by them to just to say, look, last draft it was pretty rough for us. We're going to go for the Tesla this time around. Let's see what Ballastix want to go for. Wouldn't be too surprised or wouldn't be too opposed, I suppose, really, if they just went for the Oriole as well as the Vala in this rotation, even just the Sonya to guarantee a strong solo laner.
Yeah, I don't think Vala Oriole is like the best opening anymore, but if any team could do it, it would definitely be Ballastix with SCSC on Vala. For now, it's going to be Murden and Rhaegar.
I like the Meridian pick a lot, especially since the control that we saw through Meridian on the last map was absolutely fantastic. I really loved the way that every play that Team Expert was trying to do was shut down by Meridian, so that was exceptional. We've been talking about how strong he is, and Ballastix showcases that from game to game, so I think this is a fantastic pick for them.
Murden and Rhaegar have done great today. Just to combine the first 3 days plus today, Murden's win rate is 17 wins, 12 losses. That's a lot of picks and a pretty decent win rate. Rhaegar is 17 wins and 9 losses.
Yeah.
Definitely the top emerging picks of the tournament.
It's really interesting to see Rhaegar be so high in win rate and pick rate, considering when his change came in, the redistribution of his healing numbers. Everyone was like, Rhaegar's dead, there's no way, he's just a walking ancestral healing, and yet...
It's almost like everyone has a knee-jerk reaction to any change. Change is bad, change is bad.
But I feel as if people almost forget, the reason you want to go for the Rhaegar, right? The kit just does everything. You've got the wave clear, you've got the sieging potential, you've got the potential to be a very strong four-man, rotations, even camp clear, right? So why would you not want to pick that Rhaegar?
I feel the changes would have probably had a bigger impact on his pick rate if it wasn't for the double support. If we don't, we've seen a little bit less here, but overall, oftentimes you complement a healer with a second, get some utility in, and then you can play around it if you feel that Rhaegar doesn't offer as much as you really want here. But oftentimes teams these days also go in an ETC, take proc rock, try to get a little bit healing out of that, play with the Tyrael. And actually coming back to your question earlier about meta, I expected Tyrael to be picked way more than he is picked. We have seen him, but not nearly as much as I expected from Korea and China.
And Ballastix, in one of their matches against MVP Black recently, the one they lost 3-1, they went Tyrael 4 times in a row. They won the first one, but Black was going for a very funny triple support comp on Cursed Hollow in HGC Korea. And that was 4 times in a row Tyrael, so definitely Ballastix has the recent playing experience with it. They just don't see the situation yet, apparently.
Well, for them, Ballastix, both of the warrior players can play, or both of the melee players can play him, so that does give them some flexibility with that too, but it does seem like Jungha is the better of the two when it comes to Tyrael, so maybe it is that if they're going to be sticking with more of a single warrior, double support style strategy, then that is what they want to do, is have Hooligan more comfortable here.
And there it is. Yeah, the priority for the Valerio isn't going to be in that first rotation, but I mean, like you say there, Grubby, if any team can do it, this would be them, and I mean, you give SCSC the resources and they'll single-handedly do what needs to be done.
Very stable composition again by Ballastix, double support, utility from Rhaegar and Oriole, Vala, Murden. I mean, this just looks really solid. And this is something that we've seen Korean players do often against European players, not just in Heroes of the Storm, but StarCraft 2 as well. Play something that is just extremely well-rounded with the core belief that they will execute better.
And right now, of course, we are just asking ourselves what's going to be the hyper carry here for Team Expert on the side of Nick. What is Benny going to choose on the front line? For Ballastix, as you said, Grubby, it's a very quick draft that we have here so far. And the double support Vala, we've seen that mid-season brawl, it has been dominant on this map in particular, especially when you looked at China. So now we could see that triple bot lane once again with a pressure play, trying to push through that. Expert, they have a lot of comfort picks already, with Sonya at the top going to be played by Ethereal. Then we have Cassia now in play. And we get our Tyrael, not on the side of Korea or China, but Europe at this point just says, you know what, Bad Benny, we're going to go straight in with the Tyrael, going to use that sanctification, engage with Sonya and Cassia, and try to bring the fight straight up to Ballastix.
So Team Expert has one of those really cool mass protection comps. Double support, Cassia with blinds, and a lot of armor when she moves, and Tyrael with shields and sanctification. It's the 4 protectors. And then you've got Sonya, who from level 16 onwards gets a lot of extra health and protection as well. A very survivable comp, but maybe not the ideal map for it on Dragonshire, as there is a lot of splitting to make the objective work for you. So this comp would do fantastic on Warhead Junction, for instance, where you group up a lot. Here, well, Team Expert will have to be creative and patient, as Tyrael pre-10 is a little bit less than a warrior.
I'm just wondering the direction now that Ballastix go for this 5th and final pick for Jongha. I wonder if they're going to go for the Dahaka, make sure that they have the brush stalk available to try and really solidify their dominance in that bottom lane. And that is where they will go for. I mean, typically speaking, this is what we got used to, right, with the Valorial. You just absolutely dominate the bot lane, Cassia or not. You, on the side of Expert, know how to try and find value in the mid lane, in the top lane. And I mean, that can come from the sort of the Sonya Brightwing polybomb, so to speak, that we've been discussing, right? If we're not going to win one lane, we need to at least try and find some value in a side lane or elsewhere.
I feel like if both teams were rolling for an RPG character sheet, every time you see Ballastix spreading their points very evenly among all the different attributes and characteristics, whereas last game, Expert was very much about poke and burst, and this time they're very much about protection. So a lot stronger statement of direction by Expert in both games, and with Ballastix being a lot more standard and stable.
Kaldor, you said that there were a lot of comfort picks in the first few picks that we saw for Expert. Now adding in the Cassia and Tyrael, what are your thoughts on that?
I like the picks for them. I like the idea where they're going with this. Then again, I have to agree with Grubby that I would have expected it more so maybe on Cursed Hollow. Grubby mentioned Warhead, which is also a good map for it. So that's something that where they have to play around it. But I still like that they want to be aggressive here. And again, Ethereal excels on Sonya. ADRD has played a ton of Tassadar. Curson has single-handedly destroyed teams with his Brightwing play. So I like the way they're going with this. I still have to say that I see Ballastix just as the stronger team overall here, and they have shown it on map number 1. And I also like what they are doing. It's very clean, very standard, but with the execution level that we expect from a Korean team of that caliber, I would still give the edge to Ballastix here.
Yeah, I mean, I just had to amplify that point even further, right? They've got their cookie cutter, as we've coined it, composition. They've shown the execution is there. It's just a matter of playing it now and saying, look, we're going to go for that 2-0. We don't really know the sort of mentality that Expert are going into this one. Are they looking to try and hide strats? Are they looking to say, look, we're probably going to verse Ballastix later on into this one, so why not like try and hide what we need? We can just cruise through on second seed. A lot left to be questioned.
Well, there are a lot of fans there for Experts. So let's see if with this protection style composition, they can pull out a win and take us to game 3. Over to you, Caleris and Wolf.
Seemed like it's the composition that we were hoping for in that transition from game number 1 to 2, getting themselves a longer team fight, looking to just be able to hold down.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how Ballastix played this. I agree with what Grubby was saying, kind of putting 1 point into every attribute. I think the last pick, the reason why they held it so long was they were thinking, okay, they picked Tyrael. Will this tanks be good enough to stop our Malthael play? Do we still want to lock it in to dominate lane against Sonya? They decided to take the safer in terms of team fighting Dahaka, but it does give Sonya the opportunity to dominate that top lane.
It definitely does. All right, we're going to be launching into this map in just a few moments' time here. Dragonshire to see if Team Expert can bring this back. But Ballastix, of course, going to put a lot in the hands of SC on that Valor, as he's ever so strong on it.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see what he can do. This time he's going to have more pressure on him, as he is the solo DPS coming into this one, versus last time he had Greymane to back him up. We had Jungha flexing into that one with SDE on the Tassadar. It's going to be a little bit different this time as we head into Dragonshire. This is historically one of the better maps for Team Ballastix, aka L5 in HGC Korea, so they'll be spawning here on the blue side. And just talking about compositions here, I feel like Team Expert countered a lot of the stuff that Ballastix was trying to do in the draft. They got the early Sonya pick, you and I were talking about that.
Yeah.
They got this double support that allows the more aggressive play from Cassia, as Kaldor was kind of alluding to, and they have this safe fallback with material. They have a lot more opportunities to fight directly instead of just kind of hiding and defending in the last set.
I mean, when the draft was going on, we were discussing how, Expert might approach it. I was saying Sonya first pick would be good, but they alleviated a lot of the concerns I had by just taking the Tassadar themselves.
Yeah. And, the Tassadar, you take it like that, you have the opportunity to switch into like a Tracer pick. It's just such a great first pick, and that's why we see it so often in the Korean region and the European region, picked up very early. So this early game is just going to be a little trade in the mid lane, but we're going to see a very quick rotation of Sonya and Dahaka up. You can see them both racing to the top lane right now, and it's going to be a tough matchup for the Dahaka, obviously, but it can be one where you can outskill the Sonya. It's just very difficult. That's not Jungha's playstyle. He's more known for playing safe. So what sometimes you'll see Korean teams do is rotate up the secondary support, and right now you can see that's already scouted. Bad Benny knew that was likelihood, so came up there as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a good option here for Ballastix, since they do have such strong supports, and Athero is going to require Brightwing to come up here. He's actually going to launch himself forwards on towards Yongha. But Yongha should be fine. Athero just backs off for now and gets some heal up.
This is actually a really cool matchup. We don't really get to see Athero versus Jungha all too often in a solo lane matchup like this, a Europe versus Korea. And
yeah.
I feel like both the Europe versus Korea series we've seen so far in this tournament have been fantastic. We're going to see an early Unleash attempt here for Ballastix. Good zoning, but with Kirsten coming over now, I don't think this is going to be possible. However, our running over here, Squat is real in the top lane. They couldn't steal it there, and a very early Dragonite, 1 minute and 35 seconds into the game.
Doesn't bode well just at the moment for Team Expert at all, as Bad Benny had a lot of faith in ADRD to initially get that interrupt as he'd throw that Eldruin Smite forwards, but he didn't opt to send himself forwards because there was a lot of pressure on him there.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, because in the top lane where Sonya was putting the pressure onto Dahaka, he just had to live for long enough to hold it. They lost control of the bot lane when we saw that teleport from Curson up to the top there during that exchange in the top lane. So Ballastix just controlling the rotations there, and had we seen the commitment of Terry Lin, might have been a different situation, but since he didn't, Dahaka was able to buy enough time there.
I mean, there's always the potentially dies, right? And then that's not going to bode well at all. Never mind beforehand, but SC under some pressure, not too much at all though. He has SD there to help out.
And against this caster, I think the Q build we're seeing from him here is very warranted for the single target damage. Thorough getting bullied up here in lane. Gerson's going to teleport up once more. And notice how Swoy and Jungha are very willing to just go away in moments like this, despite the fact they could have tried to force a kill. Just not worth it.
This is becoming an issue, though, because they are severely losing this lane at Team Expert against the Rehgar Dahaka. So that control has been so strong by Ballastix that you'd think Expert was getting value in other lanes because of the two-man so heavily dedicated, but they haven't.
You haven't, because Curson has been teleporting away from said lanes, which is what allows, as you can see on the minimap of the bot lane, this heavy amount of pressure, because Brightwing just simply isn't down there. Grabbing this cap was very smart, because with a Cassia or Tassadar, you can clear it very quickly. It's going to put that pressure away. But unfortunately, with the timing of the second cap being taken for Ballastix, they can clear it, and it'll be more time with the next Shrine phase.
I was wondering with that the reveal that Tassadar is able to provide that, if they were going to invade that camp, because the situation was getting a bit severe in the early game. It's not, unwinnable. I'm not saying that by any means, but you want this giant camp to get value. It didn't. Where else do you try and find value? Maybe with a camp invade, but they don't go for that as well. So Expert's playing this pretty passively.
Yeah, and, as you can see, the top lane with the huge wave up there, Sonya is having problems, and this is an issue that allows Dahaka to slow rotate down. He's not going to brush talk to mid, which gives more control to the lanes. This is a bold move to try to take this neutral bruiser cap. Let's see it. With the rotation of Dahaka in, though, they could maybe try to force it. Only 1 minion died down there, and in fact, Rehgar is still attempting it. I think Expert is just simply going to have to let it go because of the wave clear here.
Bold was a good way to describe this. Swoy's come back. So, but the thing is that now Muradin, etc., 3 members in that lane, they've established enough of a parameter around that so that they can claim that quite handedly. So it's okay, but he's got to be careful about maybe being punished on the way out. It's very low.
Indeed, and once that is revealed, I think Expert is going to try to collapse. He just instantly hearts.
Smart move.
Yeah.
Walking out could be dangerous if Expert then decided, no, we're actually going to push that 3-man hard to see where Rehgar's going.
You're absolutely right. When we talk about winning lanes in in Here's the Storm, we don't mean it in the sense of you won this lane, the lane is over. It means that you have vision control, you have minion control of areas like this, so it's tough for Expert to stop things like this. Not like they weren't aware, it's just very difficult to go in there and stop, but it wasn't 100% awareness from them.
Hooligan. Here he comes, gonna look for that lockdown, and it was a good one. On to Brightwing. Not only the bolt, but also the tongue drag. Very nicely done.
So this is going to shut down the potential unleash here for Expert. Ballastix is just one level ahead with their structural damage. The single kill we're looking at here 5 minutes into the game.
And the thing is, that first blood came effortlessly for Ballastix.
Just very well coordinated, and Brightwing just had no way out of there. Soy's going to look to grab this. They're going to have the squat, and with Brightwing being able to port in here, this needs to be taken ASAPly. They will. Had they not been able to, might have been able to see SC hold it for a moment. Kind of an odd situation in mid. You could see Murden's on the opposite side of Bad Benny here, just trying to bait a rotation up, I think, but he might get punished for it here. Looks like he does understand he has the Dwarf Toss there and would have had Avatar if things got really dicey.
Still the pressure against Sonya continues towards the top. Here comes an attempt maybe onto Dragon Knight in a few moments, but it will be a little bit difficult. The 2-2 at the moment will not subside in the mid. But Rhaegar and Murden are winning this out. It feels like, once again, the sustain game is going over in this early game, especially to Ballastix.
Sonya's very low. Up there on the top lane, I believe, just barely escapes, but it's a close call up there. Kind of a trade going on as Daka will take control. Curson is going to rotate down. Looks like I misread that actually Sonya wasn't low. Full of fake news, but Thuros, as he is in fact not low, is going to get collapsed upon here.
Might be low in a second.
He's low here now. Oh, there's the 10.
They're going to keep pursuing you, and they will take him down there with that bite coming in, as well as Murden getting the last hit. Very well done by Ballastix to punish that attempt rotation.
So I wonder if, we saw Brightwing not even lock in the Emerald Wind in that moment. I wonder if it would have been worth it to try to save him with, the Emerald Wind.
Right.
Risky, might have died anyways, so I can respect Kirsten's choice here to let this go. We're still at small death timers. The problem being that this is almost certainly an unleash, right? Both channeling now to mid. SC casually walks over. ADRD can slow it, but they're taking a camp at the same time, so I don't think they could stop this.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult, and it will go down. Next Dragon Knight in the favor here of Ballastix.
Oddly, we have Force Wall coming in here as well for ADRD, so looking to dominate the battlefield in that way. It does work well with the Emerald Wind. You can isolate a lot of targets, and then Cassia and Sonya can go ham, as they say, on said targets. But with a player like ST whose positioning is so good, you're going to be hard-pressed to make that happen. Here's a potential Emerald Wind bomb coming through.
Trying for it, and the damage dealers, meanwhile, though, where is Sonya coming in? Trying to put some pressure on against Hooligan.
So low, does get healed up here. He's going to get taken down, though. Great collapse. We talked about good positioning, and that was certainly not it. Good punish here from Team Expert. SDE going to try to make this a trade. Not going to happen, but at the same time, the Dragon Knight is finding damage mid.
And Valor's the main component. Valor is the foundation of Ballastix strategy. If she dies, everything else from the bottom up does crumble. So that's a good pick off for them. As you said, Ballastix was just kind of more focusing on the Dragon Knight actually doing something and anything else. So Expert caught Ballastix with the pants down, basically.
Yeah, that was really well done. It does minimize what this Dragon Knight will be able to get done. Mid fort's down. The keep wall, I think, took minimal damage at best. So it's not like this is a big, lost to cannon tower only. Not like this is a play where Ballastix can threaten the keep or anything with their next Dragon Knight immediately or walk down mid to punish it with heavy poke like they had on Tomb of the Spider Queen. It's a different comp, but we talked about SC's good positioning. I don't think he thought that Expert was going to react so well when he stepped over the boundaries there.
Serial Eldrune's mats away. All is fine. Noticeably, like a slightly different variation. It's not different to the normal Western meta, because Reciprocate's so very common. But the level 7 that we saw from the Korean teams, Chinese teams, to be able to have speed off of that Eldrarune's might, it's actually very potent, and I really like seeing it. So much so that when I get home, I'm going to be doing that instead of Reciprocate.
I like it a lot. It gives you opportunities to, on this map especially, kind of delay Dragon Knights. You can chase down targets. You see a lot of late game on this map, and just gives you the ability to help slow those mounts, for example. This is a bit of a bait here by Ballastix. I don't think Kirsten is going to fall for it, though. I mean, when you're taking aggro from a fort like this, it feels too obvious. Kirsten knows their hero's missing at the moment.
He realizes that that fort is gone at that point. There was no way he'd be able to defend it from the next wave and the Dahaka with the Brightwing alone. So I think as much as, you could stay there and try and clean things up, it's a lost cause. Just leave it. Try and find something else on the map.
Exactly. They did try to find something else on the map. They tried to go for that invade on the blue side siege giants there. It didn't work out, but could have been an opportunity, whereas at the top he had nothing. SC, again, very aggressively positioned here. Benny going deep right now, does have that Aldruins to escape, but he's so low, has to sank. In fact, this is not the sank they wanted.
Sanctity still low as Hooligan looking for a Stormbot potentially, and will try and go on Nick, and that is going to be Nick falling there on the Cassia. If he goes down as he's moving against auto attacks, it's a bad time for Team Expert.
That was a bit of a choke move by Bad Benny to stay that long, and in that fight, perhaps a communication error as well. An Expert maybe he thought that we were going to see a port into a Brightwing Emerald win to try to set up a fight there, but it just didn't happen.
All right, Brightwing just going to leave here. Doesn't
Hold.
think
Oh.
can hold this. Just got to go. No way you can really do much against Hooligan up in that top spot, especially if there's reinforcements with only 5v4 on the map.
So we talked about how this Dragon Knight can go directly to that slightly damaged keep wall. It wasn't completely taken out, so Expert has some time. But opposite to last game, they don't have a lot of poke in terms of defense. They're going to have Cassia's very limited poke and Brightwing and Tassadar. So this Dragon Knight, if they actually commit further mid, could get a keep.
This was actually very clever, and I'll talk about it in a moment, but this is an assault on towards Ballastix here as Hooligan pops himself the avatar, keeps himself alive, and now Yongha joins the fight with the Dragon Knight. He intentionally didn't go far because he knew Expert was going to try and punish the 4-man down to the bottom while the Dragon Knight was
Yeah,
active.
they wanted to 5-4. The Dragon Knight's not really a hero. There's a missing Dahaka in this battle right now. Bad Benny gets low. Good Emerald win here to help disengage. Zhenghe actually in a bit of an awkward spot here, just trying to kite back. Here comes the port. It's too late. Sank not up for 10. Zhenghe actually wants to go in and get a grab after this Dragon Knight is destroyed. Good dimensional shift here for ADRD. But even though they lost Tyra, they lost Bad Benny there, I think that aggressive move at the end of the day actually saved their keep. And even though they lost a member for it and they fought down a talent tier, I absolutely think it was the right move for Expert.
It's a crazy little dynamic, right? They learned from their previous Dragon Knights, like, oh, we'll just go Dragon Knight mid, or you're going to come around us 5 and like pick off one of our members, SCSC, the most important member. We're not going to go that far with the Dragon Knight. We're going to give you the opportunity if you want to fight, but there's going to be a Dragon Knight involved as well.
Yeah, if you lose your Dragon Knight, if you lose your team down in bot, the Dragon Knight gets a clear before you get a keep anyways. Your opponent catches up in experience. It's just not worth the risk there. Zhenghe's going to heavy invade onto Athero with that vulnerability there. Does have Burrow available, so Athero needs to be careful. Emerald Will's going to have to be used yet again defensively. Look what SC can do, though. So much damage.
Very, very low at the moment. So is Athero in the midst of all things up towards the top. There goes Sanctification, helping him out at the moment. They capture themselves that hard camp while this fight is going on. Ancestral Heal lands, trying to look for Athero, but it looks like Brightwing to the top is in no man's land.
Oh, man, Ballastix cut this team in half. Down goes Curse, and Athero is going to get knocked away here by Detainment Strike. This camp's going to help take out this wall. They won't get much more than this, but it's going to push them closer to 20. That fight really isolated Nick. He couldn't do damage. SC was doing free damage, and when the team got split in half, it was the end of the battle.
And that's been a common theme as they try and attack Swoy here, but Hooligan's coming in.
Yeah, very risky here. There's the counter pull. Sank is long on cooldown. Cassie goes down. Good Aegis. Will they get the kill?
Oh, Rigger falls, and that is going to be Athero trying to get out of that front as he was spinning to win, but no, the drag from Dahaka. Very well done.
Spin to lose in this case, but valiant effort there. But this is another wall down. This means Dahaka can pressure this if this game goes very late.
But that's been a common theme. You mentioned, that they divided Team Expert in that fight, and the front line has allowed them to do that. And it not only allowed them to do it in this game so far, but it allowed them to do it in the last game as well, where they were able to just divide people against walls in between lanes and really kind of conquer small sections of Team Expert.
This is this kind of priority Ballastix put on Hooligan's Muradin because it's really up to that big stun coming through. Dahaka comes in as well, uses his Dark Swarm to give the vulnerability there, so Team Expert's taking too much damage. Nick has to retreat, goes down, and maybe we'll have a replay of it later, but it's really brilliant what they're doing. When Expert gets aggressive, Ballastix knows how to respond after these force walls are going down. Speaking of force wall, I think it actually ends up being the right pick here. I think it's doing a lot for ADRD. But you do kind of feel the lack of damage, especially when these splits come through from Muradin.
And when you go into those choke points, it's very scary as someone like Athero, who wants to be near a lot of them, spinning and getting a lot of health, but there's Detainment Strike, there's Stormbolt, there's Drag, there's the Rain of Vengeance. Everything is halting Athero from progressing in this game.
Oh, certainly. Well, this looks like this Dragon Knight has been pretty burned down from all that Tassadar Psy Storming. Get a little bit of damage under the keep, but the bigger story here is the poke on the side of Ballastix with SC's Vala and these Siege Giants. Here comes a port in. Zhenghe is going to get de-knighted once again. Good Holy Ground attempt. There's the Force Wall. Hooligan easily has the sustain to get out, even if he didn't even need it, I should say there. But still, as it was last game, Expert keeps their keeps alive. And when keeps are still up, anything can happen in the late game.
Bit of an uncommon talent from Dahaka coming in. Burrowing Claws at that 16, so gives the opportunity for Zhongha to just be moving about whenever he's going to be burrowed. So it's going to be even easier for him to position himself in a good spot when the Holy Ground comes down, when the wall comes down from
Exactly. I think that's exactly it. Seeing the commitment of Expert to terrain-changing talents here with that Force Wall. So he's going to go for it. Thero Angel is going to be the target here. Good Force Wall to keep everyone out. They're going to try to turn this onto Hooligan, but look at the damage coming through from SC. Even with this Hungering Arrow build, he's able to poke so much with his auto attacks. And this keep, they're just sieging it up. Here comes the stun, though. Thero is caught. They're going to try to turn it. Emerald Wind's still available here. Hooligan is going to get that heal.
Oh, as well as Crystal Aegis as well, so they keep him alive. Sanctification goes down, trying to put more pressure onto Hooligan. Dwarf tosses away from that position. They don't want to be taking this fight. SC takes a lot of damage from that Poison Spear, as well as that smash coming out from Sonya.
All right, well, backing off. Setting up for another minion wave. The goal here is the key. Not necessarily going to be core, but Expert needs to make sure that they don't let anyone die. There's just no way they can defend the keep. Back off here, because if anyone dies, you're done. This series is over. You're going to the elimination match. Play it safe. That's one thing I think Expert has been doing fantastically throughout this series. It can still come back in the later game team fight. They can get that isolation. But I feel like Ballastix is doing so well at turning these fights when the Force Walls and Holy Grounds come down. But I think they need to rely on something else to start the fight. Maybe a Brightwing Bomb, a bigger play.
Yeah, that's kind of where, before pre-16, that's where a lot of the strength was for Ballastix. They were in chokes dividing and things like that, but now Holy Ground and things like that are, with the Brightwing Bomb potentially, are a thing in conjunction with the Holy Ground. If Expert gets 20, they then start to thrive a little bit more in those chokes and positions, even though, you know, Force Wall's there, but Ballastix have done a great job negating.
I definitely see what you're saying, and it's unfortunate that these moments you have things like Rewind, which are so frustrating to deal with. Even if you have these terrain things, Doc has burrow movement, you have Hooligan with those Rewind that's available. This is a pretty sloppy engage here for Expert. Thero's going to try to spin to win, as you call it here, to survive. Good spear here, but I don't like this. He gets caught and punished. SC gets the stun. Emerald Wind is way too late to save him. I think everybody might be dead in this movie because this looks like a push to core.
That was an execution. There was nothing more than that. Team Expert, I guess they felt like they had to take the fight, but Ballastix absolutely powered through. With two members down here, Experts in a bad spot.
Yeah, I mean, John could just walk back bot with a full health, 18-minute scaled Dragon Knight and start hitting the core. There's just nothing you can do. We've even got Siege Giants here to help clear this minion wave and start hitting the core. Nick, nice dodge there on the Storm Bolt. Don't think he'll be able to do much here. Trying to jump onto a very well-protected SC. Port comes through, safe ancestral, and Caleris. This just looks like the beginning of the end.
Yeah, absolutely. With that Dragon Knight marching on forwards as well here. Expert with trouble against Ballastix, but Ballastix has come to play here in the first series of the day. And if you judge mid-season brawl to this, L5 Ballastix, whatever you want to call them, is looking strong to start off day number 4.
That's right. Core goes down. They will take the series 2-0. Will advance to face Super Perfect team in the winners match to find out who is getting out of this group in first seed. But as you say, Ballastix looks to be in form. Feels reminiscent of last BlizzCon when he did take the title. Good control of the macro, good drafting. I think all fingers point towards Hooligan's Burden as the MVP. SC is always going to be a good baller, but it's plays like what we saw from Hooligan and Jonga that allow him to do that safe damage.
They basically looked like the Bulwark. They were so solid in all of their defense. Every time a team fight came in, every time a spear from Sonya was launched, they greeted it with open arms and said, not today. We're going to be able to deflect it super easy. But for now, we can head over to the analysis desk after game 2. A 2-0 for Ballastix.
Thank you, guys. Ballastix came in and said, well, you may have seen some good stuff in groups A, B, and C, but the best was yet to come in Group D, Skimmy.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen some fantastic games so far, but this is probably the most competitive group that we have, where all 4 teams are really able to actually try and take those first 2 spots to go towards BlizzCon. And, I mean, specifically Ballastix, nothing flashy, nothing fancy. It's just plain execution with what we've seen them do traditionally as a roster.
I feel like we've been robbed a little because this was supposed to be one of the anticipated matches that was going to be so close because Expert improved so much. They did look good, but Ballastix makes their opponents look almost chanceless, just like they've done in the tournaments that they've won. It just looked methodical, clean, and yeah, hopeless for the foes.
Final thoughts,
Ballastix.
Caldor?
I mean, when we're talking about Europe, there is still a gap between Dignitas, Fnatic, and Expert. And Ballastix, I feel, have shown what Tempest couldn't. There's the superior execution of builds. So they were clearly the better team here and deservedly take the victory. Would have loved the third map, no doubt about it. But Ballastix, I was the high favorite heading into the games, and they showed it.
Well, I'm looking forward to Ballastix versus SPT Korea versus China. But for now, let's head to the stage with Cloakin for an interview.
Thanks so much, Gilly. That's right. I'm here with SCSC, captain of Team Ballastix. Congratulations on a dominant win here in Group D. I've got to ask you, in Media Day, we spoke a bit. I asked you if you were feeling a bit of the pressure being the reigning Blizzcon champions, the return of the Ballastix sponsorship, and you said, not really. We have a different roster. We feel good. But now, with the departure of Tempest out of this tournament and NA advancing, are you feeling even more pressure to perform as a Korean team?
먼저 우승 축하드립니다. 그리고 사전 인터뷰 동안에요. 저희가 그 전 우승자로서 그리고 그 새롭게 블리스틱 스폰서 다시 구하셔가지고 대회에 참여하셨는데 혹시 긴장감이나 압박감을 느끼시냐고 물어봤는데요. 긴장감이나 압박감이 없다고 하셨는데 최근에 이제 저번 경기에서 이제 템페스트가 이제 예선을 탈락하고 이제 NA 팀들이 많이 강세를 보이고 있는데 이거에 대해서 어떻게 생각하시나요?
이번 대회가 NA가 개인적으로 제일 폼이 올라왔다고 생각해요. 그래서 C조에서 누가 떨어져도 이상하지 않은 상황이었는데 템페스트가 떨어졌던 것 같아요. 거기서.
He believes the NA team right now has the most potential in the series right now, and he says the Group C was actually a very strong group, and he didn't really know which one's gonna drop and which one's gonna win. So he wasn't quite surprised at all when NA actually went up and Tempest went down.
Gotcha. Now, SCSC, I got to ask you a personal question. I know you are known as one of the best Vola players in the world. What is it about that hero specifically that you enjoy playing and that makes you so effective on?
SCSC 선수는 지금 세계에서 발라를 가장 잘 다루는 선수로 사람들이 알고 있는데요. 혹시 그 발라 영웅을 선호하는 이유가 따로 특별히 있나요?
발라를 딱히 선호하는 이유는 없고 그냥 그 전에 발라가 좀 OP던 시절이 있었어요. 그래서 그때 연습을 좀 많이 해둬서 언제든지 뽑을 수 있게 된 것 같아요.
He doesn't actually prefer Vala that much compared to other heroes. It's just that there was a period when Vala was very OP and was very strong. So at that time, he just practiced Vala a lot and it just stuck to him, and he keeps using it since.
Got it. Okay, well, you're not quite in the clear yet for that BlizzCon position. You still got to battle through SPT in the winner's match. How do you plan to attack the team from China?
아직 그 중국 팀의 SP팀이 남아 있는데요. 어떤 식으로 공략할 생각이신가요?
이번 블리즈컨 와서 중국이랑 연습을 한 번도 안 해봐서 스타일을 정확히 잘 모르긴 하는데 그냥 전경기 보고 했는데 그냥 정석적으로 하면은 충분히 올라갈 수 있을 것 같아요.
During this tournament, he never actually played with the China team, and he doesn't exactly know what their play style is. But he believes that if he just plays regularly as they practice, they'll probably beat him.
All right. Well, SCSC, I can't wait to see that match. Good luck. All the best in your preparations. Okay, Ballastix advances to the winner's match. They will be taking on the team from China, SPT, after just a short break here from the Blizzard Arena here in Burbank, California. Stick around.